that mean? Oh, there it goes, live. I gotcha.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Paul Diebold with the Irvington Historical Society. We're here on South Johnson Avenue, just south of Washington Street, and we're talking about the Masonic Temple. Masonic Temple number 666 in Irvington. Now, don't be too alarmed by that number. My understanding is it simply was the 666th Masonic Temple in the state. There's no deeper meaning than that. This is one of our great historic buildings on the Washington Street Strip. It's actually the tallest building that's left on the strip at 3 full stories. And it's a very impressive building. Sue's going to go ahead and pan up. Sue Barnett is our camera operator today. You want to give a little wave, Sue? Here you go. Thank you, Sue. The wonderful neoclassical revival architecture of this building it is very different than most of the things on the Washington Street Strip. It's a much more formal building. This is the kind of architecture the Masonic organizations loved for its formality. It also played up to the imagery and pageantry that fraternal order liked to promote. The architect of this 1921 building is Charles Bacon. He later became the City of Indianapolis building inspector, so he knew his stuff. And when you look at the base of this building, it's right behind me over my shoulders here. It probably looks like it's polished stone or marble or something like that. In fact, the other reason why this building is so important is that material is architectural terracotta, which is kind of like brick, but the terracotta material could be glazed, and a industrial grade glaze could be applied to it, and it can emulate many things. If you're familiar with the Indiana Repertory Theater that used to be Indiana Theater in downtown Indianapolis on Washington Street, that looks like white marble, that is white terracotta. And same with Circle Theater on Monument Circle, that is a terracotta building. The advantages of terracotta for an architect were that you could have a craftsman design a series of molds, and then those could be used repeatedly. And you can see there are repetitious architectural elements, bands of molding, arches and so forth, that are repeated on this building. Only one mold had to be made, and although I can tell you from lifting some of those terracotta blocks that have been salvaged from other buildings, they're not light. They're much lighter than solid stone would be, much, much lighter, and less expensive because with solid stone, of course, the craftsman has to craft each block as you go along, instead of having a mold from which many elements can be made time and again. Also, one of the interesting things about this building are the many uses that have been in it. Of course, the Masons were smart fellows. When they built their buildings, they put their lodge and activity rooms on the upper floors, and they would usually reserve the lower floor for commercial activity. This provided continuous rent to sustain the temple. So on the ground floor here, we have storefronts, one around on Washington Street that is now Hampton Design. We have our sponsors at Irvington Historical Society. That space in the 1920s was an electrician's shop. Then you had the video game storefront here, one of our new businesses in Irvington. That was the post office. The post office was, before that, across the street in a building that most unfortunately collapsed several years ago. The next storefront had a grocery meat market in it called Vandiver Meats in the 1920s. And then the last storefront, which is a bookstore today, what goes around comes around, that was a Christian Science reading room in the 1920s, and that use remained in that last space where Irvington Book and Vinyl is. That use remained in there for a number of years, probably at 10, 15 or so years. On into the 30s, other uses came. The post office remained until the 1950s, until a separate building was built further down Washington Street at about Bolton. A drugstore came in the middle bay, and a musical instrument store remains in the final bay. I'm here also today with Marion County historian Steve Barnett. Steve Barnett, you can meet him at the Bona Thompson Center most of the days that we're open because he is the executive director there. It's a great asset for us to have Steve as Marion County historian as well. Steve, do you recall anything that was in that final bay there in the 1960s?
That was Bromley's music shop.
Bromley's music shop.
And Bromley's was there throughout my memories of the 50s into the maybe early 60s. And I went in there once, I wanted to play bagpipes. And I went in there, I thought, well, Mr. Bromley can tell me, he's got bagpipes, and tell me how to do it. He said, no, we don't have bagpipes.
Bagpipes. Can you imagine Steve Barnett playing the bagpipes? I'd like to see that myself. So that just about wraps up our story for today, folks. We thank you for watching. If you get next time you get a chance to come out here to Irvington, go around to the front of the building. There's a beautiful entrance, and this building then reveals itself to be a flat iron or wedge-shaped building because of the way the lot is configured, because the way Johnson Avenue kind of swings out and curves around. That's another unique aspect of this 1921 building, which will be a century old next year. We'll see you next week. Until then, we are still needing your support. We are actually probably not going to be holding many events in Bona Thompson Center, so anything that you can send to us is much appreciated. We'll see you next time, folks. Have a great weekend.
Do I hit finish?